this moment that we're in, that it's not just Georgia, but we have an opportunity this year to send 3 Black men to the United States Senate. You're talking about Raphael Warnock, who is the clear front runner in a jungle or an open primary. You're talking about Jamie Harrison, who is tied with Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, who's been a senator for decades. You're talking about Mike Espy in Mississippi, who is 1 point behind his opponent and has raised $4 million. Now, Mississippi is the only state in the country where there's no early vote. So voters have to get out and vote on election day. But young folks, young people of color from Mississippi all the way to South Carolina understand how important this moment is, and they are leaning into it.
I just seen that smile on your face. You really enjoy politics. That's the activist in you, is it not? I mean, it's a gleam that comes over you when you're talking about elections and politics.
Well, it's not about the politics at all. It's about what we can do. I'm excited about what we call co-governance, right? I'm excited about having elected officials in the U.S. Senate and in the Georgia House and in the Georgia Senate who not only know what our priorities are, but who feel accountable to us in our communities. It's not about politics. It's about the fact that I'm embarrassed that the minimum wage in my home state is $5.15 an hour. And I want somebody who is just as embarrassed and eager to do something about it.
Speaking of your home state, tell us a bit about you and say, where are you from and how'd you get into this work? I know you're brilliant, but why voting?
You are far too kind. I'm pretty sure that my nephew just called me stupid on Sunday. So that validation means a lot to me in this moment. Thank you. Born in Nigeria, immigrated to the U.S., to Atlanta with my family when I was a wee one in elementary school. I'm an Atlanta public school graduate, a graduate of Georgia Tech. I'm a graduate of all of Georgia's finest public school institutions. And then also sort of a baby, precocious, very eager, super volunteer with the Georgia Democratic Party in campaigns of the 80s and 90s. I left to, go to law school and make my career in DC, and I've lived in other countries because I never thought that an opportunity to do the people's work, to work on progressive politics could be my career in a state that I call home and in a state that I love. I would say that Georgia's politics, particularly Democratic politics, but no, all of Georgia's politics were marked by a aggressive commitment to centrism that didn't serve my purposes or the purposes of folks who are similarly situated to me. The idea that we would constantly negotiate with people who don't mean us well, negotiate with people who don't value, acknowledge, or respect our human rights, our civil rights, women's rights, workers' rights. I don't think that it's in my best interest to negotiate with them in just so that we can appear to be bipartisan. And so getting to this place where we are building a movement home, an organizing home, a political home for the future of Georgia, for folks who are not trying to cling to some vision of the past that, if we are being honest, never actually existed. We are trying to build power and create a Georgia where our families can do more than just survive, where we can thrive. Georgia's going to be the first state in the Deep South with a white minority. 4 years, 5 years at the most, African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans are going to make up the majority of Georgians. What is that going to mean for our politics? Are we going to allow people who, again, negotiate our way to the middle? Are we going to allow them to dictate the politics of Georgia's future? Why? When we're clearly the majority? Why? When we have an opportunity to have thriving businesses and thriving public schools in the middle of a pandemic where thousands of people are losing their lives, where, we are now having to answer questions about what kind of state we want to be, what kind of economy do we want to create for Georgia families. The elected officials in the Georgia state legislature thought it wise to cut $1 billion, billion with a B, from Georgia's education budget. Those people don't speak for me.
Wow, that's incredible. Have you ever thought for running for office? I mean, you sound like you have all the educational qualities, that's for sure, and a political acumen. Have you ever considered running for office, being on the ballot yourself?
You're so sweet. Thank you. No, I have not. Listen, the work of the New Georgia Project, let me tell you, I got gray hairs.
Oh,
I
get out
haven't
of
been
here.
getting
This
sleep.
is great.
Here's the thing. I think that it's going to take all of us to make this. It's going to take journalists, right? And people that are telling the stories, that are helping us combat misinformation and disinformation, so that people are informed and they know what their options are and they know what the stakes are, right? It's going to take elected officials like Raphael Warnock and Jamie Harrison and Mike Espy to raise their hand and say, I'm willing to do the people's work. Right? It's going to take organizers like myself and my colleagues at the New Georgia Project who are saying we have to register voters year in and year out to expand the electorate so that we have a more representative democracy, so that when the choice is made in November, that we know that it is a reflection of the priorities of the people.
Tell us the story of the New Georgia Project. I think many people know it was started by Stacey Abrams, but you've kind of carried the ball, have you not? And what has that wrought? What has that made become? New Georgia Project is kind of unique to Georgia, too, is it not?
I don't know many organizations that do what we do, but I'm looking for them every day, and we're hoping to build right with other organizations. So yeah, Stacey Leader Abrams founded New Georgia Project back in 2013. We were a sponsored project, and the idea was that at the time there were 1.2 million Georgians of color, African Americans, Latinos, AAPI Georgians, unmarried women who were eligible to vote and unregistered. And at the time when you start looking at top of the ticket races, right? United States President, United States Senate, Governor of Georgia, the win margin, the difference between the successful candidate and the losing candidate on average was about 200,000 and 250,000 votes. And so, when I was introduced to Stacey and thinking about coming on as the executive director to run the New Georgia Project, she laid the numbers out very clearly. There were nearly 5 times the number of Black and brown Georgians who were eligible to vote and unregistered. 5 times more than what was needed to swing any statewide election. And so it began to make it super clear to us how powerful Black voters were in a state like Georgia. And so we took off. We got to work. The first year we launched, we registered 86,419 people to vote. But because of the scope, the scale, the size, the geographic diversity of the work that we were doing, we also started to find all of these problems, all of these issues with voter suppression. And people doubted us. They thought that we were making it up. There were all kinds of hit pieces about who we are and what we did, lies about what our intentions were. Folks had no idea what we were doing, right? And here's the thing, the work of the New Georgia Project not only challenges vote suppressors and bad actors on the right, it also challenges our siblings, our comrades, and people who do this work on the left. We happen to believe that there is a better way. We happen to believe that Black people deserve the best in everything, including in their organizing and political homes, right? And so showing better than telling how to do this and how to do it in a way, how to do it with integrity, how to do it where we don't lose our culture, how to do it where we don't have to spend all of our money hiring consultants from out of state, that we can build a homegrown, a new generation of homegrown Georgians who know how to do this work and maintain their commitment and allegiance to the communities that we do this with. And so, yeah, that's how we became. That's how we came to be. I think that that's the role that we play. And I'm excited about what it means for the future of Georgia. I want there to be tons of little New Georgia projects in counties across the state, because we need power. We need power to be able to stop the bad things from happening in our communities. And we need power to shape the world that we want to live in.
You mentioned voter suppression. That's become a major issue this summer, racial reckoning, particularly in the state of Georgia and across the country. But voter suppression, early voting, balloting, which starts today, this has been a raucous summer with regard to voting and politics, has it not been?
Yeah, it has. Part of it is because, again, of the scope and the scale and the size of the work of the New Georgia Project. I also think that, the theft of the 2018 gubernatorial seat from Leader Abrams is sort of a clarifying, defining moment for a lot of Americans to recognize how vulnerable our democracy is, to recognize that democracy is not a static state of being, that it is a dynamic set of agreements that we have to constantly monitor and work on. I think there was a recognition that there are no such thing. There's not red states and blue states, particularly not in the South, that there's a lot of voter suppression that's happening. When you think about how important Black voters are in a state like Georgia, we are at the very least a purple state, but the reason that Georgia is America's newest battleground state is because of the extraordinary work that's been happening to register Black folks and young folks to vote, and then to make sure that their votes get counted. Their votes weren't being counted. That's the reality we need to face. Their votes were not being counted.
And that's what someone asked. Someone just asked, if we voted by mail, is there a way to know our ballot was counted? A viewer just asked that question. How does one know their vote will count?
So there are a couple ways. One, in Georgia, at least, if your county receives their ballot, you're supposed to get notice that your ballot was received. And then with notice that your ballot is received, there is an assumption that your ballot is counted. And if your ballot was not counted, if there was some deficiency, you should be getting notice from your county board of elections to say, hey, you didn't sign the outside of your ballot, or your ballot wasn't counted for some reason.
Are you concerned about what election day may bring or early voting that started today? Are you concerned that maybe some shenanigans, some some illegal activities that suppress our vote?
I mean, I feel like you get there's I don't know what concerned means in comparison to like we fully, absolutely 100% expect and anticipate that to occur. So if that is concerned, then yes, I am. We fully and wholly expect there to be shenanigans and long lines at the polls and other things that prevent people or that inconvenience folks while they're participating. And the reason that it's happening is because so many people want to vote that like it's nuts that we're talking about lines that were a mile long at 7:30 in the morning in counties across the state. The only way that we're going to ensure, like, we can't get a new Secretary of State is not on the ballot, governor's not on the ballot this November, or basically starting today. Happy election day, everybody. None of those are on the ballot. So the only way that we're going to make sure that every vote gets counted, or at least the desires of voters is reflected in the results of the election, is for folks to show up in crazy numbers. And that's what we're expecting in this moment. I gotta stop talking with my hands. But that is, but also that's what we're seeing. And so, yes, all of those things, we expect all of them to happen. Yes, we have plans to address and neutralize them all. And yes, the most effective way to neutralize all of that is to make sure that everyone in the group chat, everyone on your friends list goes out and votes early, so that we can wrap it up before November 3rd.
As we speak, leader Stacey Abrams and Dr. Jill Biden are holding an early voting rally in DeKalb County.
I love that.
It also shows the importance of Georgia, does it not?
Yeah, Georgia is America's newest swing state, full stop. Period, point blank, the end. When you add, I'm thinking specifically of the work of the New Georgia Project, but you think about the work of the New Georgia Project, the work of groups like Pro Georgia, the Abrams campaign, the work that the Biden-Harris campaign is doing. We're talking about, adding 500,000 new Black voters, new young Black voters to the rolls, in 1 year. That's incredible. And it definitely highlights and shows the importance of Georgia to this moment. There are a lot of pundits who make their money talking about the electoral map and like the respective path to 270 electoral votes and the path to the White House. And for those who are talking about the path to victory and not including Georgia, I have a hard time taking them seriously, given how much movement we've made over the past couple of years.
So what does Dr. Jill Biden being here along with Speaker Leader Abrams say about the female vote itself? That's a major factor, is it not? Women voting?
Yes, I think that half of our population voting is very important. I think that it's weird. I think that it's weird that women's leadership is still seen as something novel when they represent half of the population. I think it's weird that we've never had a woman president. Given what we know about leaders and leadership in the corporate sector, in public life, across all industries. The idea that 100% of the leaders of our nation have been men is weird. And so, I look forward to the day when gender isn't used to hold people back and deny the talent, the ability, the wisdom. Listen, a good idea does not care where it comes from. And so I love that Dr. Biden and Leader Abrams are out in DeKalb County, a super important county in our state. And yeah, I love that they're out here. They're talking to voters. They're bringing the energy, and they're showing DeKalb County voters how much they matter in this moment.
Right.
I'm still looking for my invitation. I didn't get invited.
Leader Abrams came within a hair's breadth of winning the Georgia governorship. How has she become such a major political figure, not only in Georgia, but across the country? She's a power broker, is she not?
What do you mean by power broker?
Oh, she's a political influencer. I mean, it seems that she has her hands in a lot of political. She's helping Reverend Warnock, for example, and other political leaders. It seems like she's become the de facto leader, Democratic leader in Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, she wanted it. I was going to say, like, it doesn't seem like it was it seemed like there was a vacancy there for quite some time. Unless, I mean, listen, you are like our resident Georgia political historian. If you can tell me whose seat was taken when Stacey sort of ascended to national prominence, and like helped connect the gap, there was a gap there. There's a leadership vacuum. And she stepped in and built a team of folks who love Black people, who love the South, who love Georgia, and want to build something that speaks to the Georgia that we are becoming.
T. Lane Hoffman writes, 3 hours to get through the line this morning at South DeKalb Mall starting at 7 a.m. You see that? What do you make of that? What is that saying to you, somebody who's in this registration, this voting arena? A good start, you think?
I do. I mean, again, I want more early voting locations, right? Like, especially for the first day of early voting. Like, people know that you can look at the registration numbers, you can look at the number of inquiries, you can look at the absentee ballot requests and tell that this is going to be one for the history books. And so we're going to keep on leaning, and we're going to keep on advocating with county board of election officials. And this should not be, but it also is exciting because, again, it means that, because folks woke up at 6 o'clock, got showered, got dressed, and took their tails and themselves and their families to South DeKalb Mall, because they wanted to exercise their right to vote. It's working.
You are too. You really are. Here's one other question. Polling locations can change occasionally. Is there an accurate place to check where we vote? One last question.
The Secretary of State's website is supposed to be the most accurate place. But as you mentioned in your note, that things change. If a pipe bursts at Mulberry Elementary School, and Mulberry Elementary School was supposed to be an early voting location, guess what? We can't vote there now. And folks at the county level have to scramble to find an alternative location to, accommodate that last minute change. But mvp.sos.ga.gov is the Secretary of State's website, and the best information available for early voting locations and your polling location on election day.
Finally, you said this is going to be a historic year. Do you feel, in your gut, and you know politics as well as anybody, do you think that Reverend Warnock can win this Senate seat?
In Georgia, absolutely.
The votes are there, you're saying?
Without question. I think it's important to point out that one, he's a front runner, and he's a front
Yeah.
runner in a race with 21, 22 candidates. He's a serious candidate. This is not a vanity exercise that's like designed to build name recognition. He has taken arrests on behalf of the people of Georgia around Medicaid expansion, activists, organizers, people who have put their bodies on the line, their safety, their health on the line to build the Georgia that we know we deserve, that our families deserve. Know him by his works, and are coalescing around his candidacy. And again, we started out earlier in the race where, there was a lot of volatility in the polling. One person would be first place, then second place, third place. We're starting to see much more stability as we march towards election day. And it is clear that Raphael Warnock is the front runner. It is clear that he's the only serious person in this race that has a chance of winning, getting to Washington, D.C. to do the people's work.
He's at 36% in the polls. That's his lead right now. Nobody else has a double-digit lead, according to the recent polls. Also, Raphael Warnock worked with you or the New Georgia Project, did he not?
He's our former board chair. Yeah, he succeeded Leader Abrams as the chair of the New Georgia Project board of directors. But that seat is definitely reserved for someone who loves Black people and is about the work. As you can see from the results of the work of the New Georgia Project, that we are not only strategic, but we are committed to changing the culture of elections, to broadening, broadening the electorate, expanding the electorate, but also building a bigger we. The we in the we the people, we want to build a bigger we. We want to build a bigger us. We are not the sort of an organization of elites, right? Of people who come from named families. These are folks who are ready to do the work. That if you care about Black folks, you care about young people, you have the time, you got some talent, or you have some resources to contribute to the mission, and you're willing to roll up your sleeves, then the New Georgia Project is a place where you can throw down and we can do some good work together. And Raphael Warnock helped lead us in that work. So as the kids say, he's got receipts.
So do you, ma'am. Dr. Charles Steele Jr., the president of SCLC and SCLC Votes team, we salute and applaud you and say for the great job you're doing. Thank you so very, very much. You're number one in our hearts.
Oh, thank you so much. I love every time we're able to connect. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do, for your truth telling, for sharing your platform. We owe you all a debt of gratitude.
Thank you very much, and good night. See you soon.
See you soon. Take care.